This meeting.
All right, good morning, folks. We're just getting some people through the turnstiles here to start today's meeting. So I'll just take a couple minutes as folks file in, and then we'll be off and running. Okay, we're over 50 participants right now, so it sounds like a good number to start. So let's get today's meeting underway. I'm Sean Silver. I'm with the Commercial Waste Reduction Branch at MassDEP, and welcome to our Winter 2025 Solid Waste Advisory Committee meeting. These meetings are designed to be kind of a two-way street for MassDEP to provide program updates, disseminate crucial information to various stakeholders in the world of waste and recycling, and as well as answer questions and receive feedback from those stakeholders. So I would ask you as we start today's meeting, use the raise hand feature so we can get to any questions or comments in orderly fashion during the meeting. We'll also be recording this for future posting to our Solid Waste Advisory Committee website. Folks who attended today, we will be sending an email out after the meeting with that information. That posting on the website will also include the presentations as well. We have a range of updates to cover today. So we'll start with some MassDEP funding programs, including the Reduce, Reuse, Repair Micro Grant, the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program, and the Recycling and Reuse Business Development Grant. Additionally, we'll be hearing about a proposed new program associated with our market development efforts. That's the Waste Reduction Innovation Grant. And you may have also heard of the recently established EPR Commission. We'll talk about that and wrap up with where we are with our assessment of the 2030 statewide solid waste master plan, which, if you're looking at your calendar, 2025 is right at the midway point. So we're going to try to cover all of that and have a little bit of time for discussion at the end. So before we get started today, I'd just like to ask the audience if there's any questions. And then we'll kick it off with Janice Paré of our Municipal Waste Reduction Branch, and she'll talk about the Reduce, Reuse, Repair micro grants to start. Just a minute for any questions here. I see we're up over 60 attendees, which is great. Glad that people are engaged and ready to go today. Okay. I will pass it over to Janice at this point. Here's our agenda. I didn't even bother to go to that slide there, but that's basically what I just said. For folks who are curious, those who are visual learners. And now we'll get it over to Janice.
Thank you, Sean. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm Janice Paré. Today, I'm going to be sharing some of the highlights from our 2024 grant round for the Reduce, Reuse, Repair micro grants, and I'm going to update you on what's in store for 2025. We're very excited. So to go back, some of you might remember that the micro grant awards used to max out at $5,000 and the deadline was rolling. That was from like 2020 to the end of 2023. So last year we changed the program substantially in order to solicit more responses and next slide, and encourage projects with greater impact. So to do that, we instituted a deadline for the first time, and that allowed us to do a concrete publicity push. We sent press releases to trade journals and websites with grant opportunity pages, and we sent several emails to an assortment of organizations, business bureaus, and listservs. And we also increased the maximum award amount to $10,000. And more than doubled the budget. So not only raising the amount, but increasing the amount we could award overall. All those changes seem to have paid off. I feel like 2024 was a banner year for us. We received a significantly higher number of applications. We awarded 23 grants, which is more than we had ever in one single year previously. And we also awarded over the allotted amount. So we budgeted 125,000. We actually awarded 140,000. So to give you an idea of the kinds of things that we like to see, next slide, and like cool stuff that we were able to fund this year. Mind you, none of these are completed. Some of them are in process. I'm just going to give you an idea of what they applied for, and so hopefully, it all pans out. But I'll start with what we consider innovative ideas, and we're always looking for innovative ideas. We don't know all of the ideas that happen in reuse and repair. So we can come up with some ideas for you, but we're always looking for cool ideas. And so we thought these ones were good examples of cool ideas. So first one was Buzzards Bay Area Habitat for Humanity. They have a ramp reuse program where homeowners can donate used metal ramps to those in need. Those are the giant ramps that people have to use if they have mobility issues to get into their houses. You can imagine those are big, and it would be great to reuse them. So the program takes in those ones and then they redistribute them out to those in need. They think that it will help keep low-income homeowners aging in place while keeping ramps out of the landfill. And we gave them $9,200 for that project. It's already on its way. It's pretty cool. The next one was the Carey Company. The plan here is to use a high-profile home slated for demolition in Nantucket to show those in Nantucket the possibilities in deconstruction. So the goal is to change the dialogue about what can be done with those homes before they are demolished and taken to the dump. Carey Company wants to sort of change its business method to allow for deconstruction instead of just demolition. So our hope, MassDEP and the Carey Company, is that they can use this project as a showcase of the possibilities of deconstruction and salvage, not only on the island of Nantucket, but similar island communities and potentially across the state. So the grant funds for this project are being used to pay for an expert consultant to help them plan the project. I believe it's already underway, and we awarded them $3,500. The next slide, please, is reusable foodware. Reusable foodware, changing to reusables is a really great way to reduce our waste, going from single use. So we're always excited about these innovative ideas too. Lawrence General Hospital is introducing reusable pitchers and cups in their institutional cafeteria. This could have significant impact because they reported that in just one 6-month period from October 2023 to March 2024, they had purchased an estimated 82,000 single-use 8-ounce water bottles. They believe that washable dishware can be safely managed within infection control guidelines and reused with zero waste, which is kind of a big deal. If it works for one hospital, it could be expanded. But their aim is to see a 50% reduction in purchases within 6 months. And the success of this project will inform the rollout of reusable cups at all Lawrence General sites throughout the region. We awarded them $10,000 for that. The next one is out in Western Mass, the Berkshire Environmental Action Team, known as BEAT. They received a grant to install a dishwasher at their Environmental Leadership and Education Center. BEAT hosts several events per year, and so their intention is to encourage a culture of lending and sharing by providing reusable serviceware for those events. We gave them $9,440 to do that. I think eventually they were hoping to be able to lend out this stuff to people doing other events. So that's really cool. It has a high potential for impact. Next slide, please. So for repair, we awarded Swanson's Fabrics, which will establish free and donation-based weekend repair workshops in their sewing studio space and purchase equipment to improve their textile mending library / makerspace resources. They also plan to host a mending table at the weekly Turner's Falls Farmers Market in May and host 4 repair cafes at local libraries and universities during the 2024-25 academic year and the summer of 2025. We gave them $3,650 for that project. The next one is the town of Westport. Westport's starting a pilot partnership between the Westport Transfer Station and the Westport Bicycling Committee. This one has been in the works for like 2 years, so we were excited to see it finally moving. The plan is to divert bicycles from the metals recycling dumpster into a repair and reuse program. The goal of the program is to provide bikes that need repair to organizations that teach low-income youth to repair bikes and to donate those bikes to low-income and newly arrived immigrant families. The grants will be used to purchase a shed and bike racks to store the donated bikes until they are transferred to reuse organizations. I know they've already bought the shed, so that's underway, and I'm very excited. I tell you, we got with $5,000 for that one. Next slide, please. So this one is furniture and other bulky items. This is another priority material for MassDEP's reuse plan. So as some of you are aware, move out time in the summer is a sight to behold around the big universities in Boston and Cambridge, probably elsewhere too, but here it is, it's pretty amazing. The city of Cambridge sees approximately 20,000 residents move in and out each year, mostly during the June 1st or September 1st lease cycle. The plan for this pilot project is to hire a contractor to collect good condition items and have them reused through thrift stores. The city will advertise the program to its residents at no cost, as a no-cost way to have their goods reused, and schedule pickups for the contractor to then collect those materials on the 1, 2, or 3 days leading up to June 1st. I think they originally applied to do it on September 1st last year, but because of the awarding cycle, it's going to be June 1st this year. So the hope is that then the contractor will report back to them on the value of the materials that they recovered, and the number of items that had to be trashed, how many items weren't out and potentially scavenged. And if all goes well, the city may have this as a regular program offering to offset the large number of items left on the curb during those move out times, which would be amazing. Could be also a blueprint for other universities. So we gave them $6,000 for that. The next one is Devon's Eco Efficiency Center. We gave the Great Exchange Projects $6,491 for their project to restructure their website. Basically, they want to simplify their content management, improve their user experience, and elevate search engine rankings to make them more visible when people search for the kinds of things that they have. So in doing that, they want to include inventory pictures and captions, a website form to sign up for email alerts, an aggregation system for scheduling and cross-posting social media content. So their main goal is to make their inventory easier to find and engage more shoppers, which we think would be awesome. Next slide, please. We learned a lot during 2024 season. Okay. We learned the deadlines work. We also learned that we need to institute a minimum dollar amount for the grants in order to encourage projects with greater impact, and also to ensure that we're using our time and resources more effectively. We have updated the guidance to provide better examples of what eligible projects might be. Given the number of applications we had a lot of good feedback to see, like, what are people interpreting this as, what we mean. So we were able to put in some better examples to get more eligible projects submitted. And we also, in doing that, in trying to get more eligible projects, we also instituted a glossary of terms to help people understand, like, what do we mean by waste reduction? What do we mean by repair? Because we do often still get recycling and compost applications, or applications for projects that include those types of things, which it's not the grant for that. We also I think beefed up last year, but this year too, our evaluation criteria. So that's also listed in the grant guidelines, and we encourage anyone interested in applying to carefully review the guidelines, note the evaluation criteria, because they give a clear indication of what we're asking ourselves when we're making the decisions on these grants. Next slide, please. So to sum it up, I just want to give you guys some, like, the highlights for 2025. Minimum awards ask $3,000. We never had a minimum before, so it's just repeating that to make sure it's clear. Maximum awards up to 10,000. We have updated the grant guidelines. They are available on our webpage. Somebody can put that in the chat, if maybe possibly. I can later. And just so you guys know, Leah Kelleher is actually managing the grants this cycle for the first time. So she and I are both open to discussing potential ideas up until the grant opens on April 15th. So if you want, you can send us an email. What do you think about this? We can talk about it. Happy to give you some feedback. You can email us both because I am still more knowledgeable about what we've done in the past, but Leah's catching on super quickly. Next slide. And just to give you guys the important dates so we all know how this is working. Leah and I will be hosting a virtual information session on April 1st from 10 to 11. And anyone planning to apply can drop in and ask questions at that time. A link to the session is already available on the microgrant webpage. Registration is required. So if you have any questions about the grant, eligibility, whatever, that would be a great time for you to get on and ask. We'll be going through the application too to make clear what we mean in certain sections in case there's any confusion. The application will open on April 15th, and on that date, we will post the application on the webpage. So once the grant's open, all questions must be submitted in writing to Leah. She will not be answering your questions individually unless you have a technical question about the application. All questions will be posted on the webpage, like in aggregate, by April 29th at 5 p.m. And we'll have a link to that on the webpage. So like by the end of the day on April 29th, you'll be able to look in case you had any lingering questions and submit your application at that time, or before the May 15th deadline. Yeah, last slide, please. Thank you. These are our email addresses. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. We're hoping to see a lot of applications with a lot of fun ideas. Thanks.
Thank you, Janice. Like you said, a lot of fun ideas there. Definitely some work that's interesting and relatable. Any questions for Janice? You can either pop them in the chat or raise your hand, and we'd be happy to take you. Okay. Thank you, Janice. Thanks for getting us up to speed on the Triple R. I don't know if that's an official name, but that's what I'm using. All right. Next up, we're going to hear about the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program and the various assistance provided to cities and towns for this grant cycle. And to present will be Kathy Mirza, our branch chief for municipal waste reduction. Kathy.
Great. Thank you, Sean. Oh, yeah, I was going to say, if you want to go to that first slide, terrific. Happy to be here today. Kathy Mirza, as you know, I'm the branch chief for municipal waste reduction programs, and I'm just so excited when I hear the presentation about what's happening on the reduce and reuse microgrants. It's so much great work. I'm going to be providing a brief update on the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program grant, or the SMRP grant. I'll be doing this on behalf of our grant manager, Rachel Smith, who put together these slides today. So if you aren't familiar with the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program grant, it was created through the Green Communities Act and MassDEP regulations. It's an annual grant that's available to municipalities and regional solid waste management districts in our state. And we're now in our 16th year of doing this grant. And while the grant offerings often change a little bit each year, and I'll make note of what those changes are in just a few minutes, they're all designed to promote best practices. That's really our goal and our framework. Best practices for waste reduction, reuse, recycling, and composting to support the goals of the MassDEP Solid Waste Master Plan. I also wanted to just use this opportunity. I noticed Rachel put it in the slide here, that bottom bullet. We have a job opening in our branch in Boston. So there's a link there when these slides become available, but you can also just reach out if anyone's interested in applying for that. Applications are best to submit before the 20th of February. Next slide, please. So this slide summarizes the awards that were issued in 2024. The awards did come out late, as most of you are well aware of, but go out thankfully in December, and that totaled more than $4 million and awarded to 285 municipalities and regional groups. I want to highlight a few things here. The bulk of the awards actually go for the Recycling Dividends Program. On this slide, it says RDP. That's the Recycling Dividends Program, and that's a component of the SMRP grant, of the larger annual grant. I'm sure many folks are familiar with it because what it does is it rewards municipalities for best practices based on a menu of different activities that they could be implementing in their communities. There's a great deal of interest here, and the number of municipalities and programs that they implement keeps their program strong and continues to grow. So we give out a little over $3 million last year for that particular component of the grant. You can see that we also gave out funding for food waste collection carts for a handful of municipalities. We gave out reuse swap sheds, which are very popular in communities to, again, enable reuse on the local level where there's a drop-off location. We've given out funding for universal waste sheds targeting that specific material stream. We also always award funds whenever a grant comes in for pay-as-you-throw funding. And so this funding is for new programs and also communities that are upgrading their existing pay-as-you-throw programs, which a snapshot of that would be where residents pay for every container of trash that they put out for disposal. That's the idea of a pay-as-you-throw program. They can look a bit different from one community to the other, but we have always seen them for the decades that we've been looking at this data to be the top performing programs because we see the least amount of trash coming out of them. We also provide a limited amount of funding for regional small scale initiatives, but we're particularly excited to let you know about 5 larger scale projects that we awarded a substantial amount of grant funds to in 2024. So 3 of these larger scale projects were focused on, we're still there, yep, focused on reducing waste. Yeah, right there, thank you, Sean. Focused on reducing waste. Now, Brookline got one of those grants. They're gonna be working on a toolkit to improve and expand recycling access for multifamily housing. A second grant went to the city of New Bedford as they expand the use of reusables in their schools, including bulk milk containers and reusable trays and foodware. And then the third large-scale waste reduction grant that we awarded was to the city of Newton, who is partnering with the Product Stewardship Institute to study the quantifiable benefits of extended producer responsibility for municipalities in Massachusetts. So we're excited about those 3 large waste reduction grants. We also gave out 2 other large grants, one in the organics capacity category, and that grant went to Winchester for an anaerobic digester to manage their organics locally. And then the 5th large grant that we awarded was to Lawrence and Methuen, excuse me, as a joint regional project to establish a permanent household hazardous waste collection facility. Now, MassDEP works closely with these grantees on these projects, which have 2 years to do the implementation. Next slide, please. So for the upcoming cycle for spring 2025, MassDEP will be offering grant opportunities in 6 categories, very similar to what you've seen in the past, with just a few things that I wanted to highlight in terms of additional offerings. As I mentioned, most of these are the same as what's been seen before. The primary changes here will be in this drop-off category that you see in the left side of the slide. So we've added or kind of returned some of the container collection options for source-separated materials that were formerly part of this grant, and then they were removed, and now we're bringing them back again. We're seeing the opportunity to capture some high-volume materials that are source-separated. So you'll see we've added back compactors for cardboard collection, containers for source-separated glass, paint sheds, and new this year, we're adding collection equipment for food waste that's going to be collected at a drop-off center or a transfer station or recycling center or some other municipal location. So it's the equipment to capture food waste in a drop-off setting. And that's different from the bullet in the bottom left that is the food waste collection part grant, which is focused most specifically on curbside collection of residential food waste. The other categories noted here are consistent with what we've offered in the past. Next slide, please. There you go. Thanks. And then we wanted to provide a brief reminder, if there are any municipalities on the call today, I'm confident you know about these deadlines because it's this week. So it is crunch time for communities across the state, working very closely, most of them with their municipal assistance coordinators that we have ready and available to work with everybody to assist you as a municipality or regional group to get over that finish line. Some of the prerequisites here we wanted to just make note of, which would include the completion of an annual recycling and solid waste survey. That's a common request every single year. And so would be for the 2024 calendar year. That's what that would reflect. We also require a calendar year 24 spending report for communities that were awarded grants in the past. The RDP grant, they need to report what they've spent their funds on and also what they plan to spend funds on if they are retaining some in a municipal account. So it's really important for us to understand what the plans are for those funds that have been awarded and the timeline and the types of projects that you intend to reinvest so that you can continue to grow your waste reduction programs. And last, but certainly not least, is a requirement for an annual notification out to anybody who does purchasing in the municipality needs to be aware of the policy that the municipality would have in place for buying recycled products. It's so essential that we help to close that loop and buy products that contain recycled content materials. And as I mentioned, the MAC, or Municipal Assistance Coordinators, work closely with communities. If for some reason you don't know who your MAC is, certainly reach out to me and I will get you that contact information right away. And then the next slide, which is my last slide here, is to let you know that the applications will officially be opened in ReTrack. ReTrack is the online platform that we use for municipalities to submit all of these requirements, the documents, the reports and surveys, and also the application. So there's one municipal contact that has access to ReTrack for each community. The application goes live on April 1st. I really want to call attention to the fact that the deadline is June 2nd. It's a little bit earlier than it has been in the past, just a smidge, but it still gives a full 2 months for folks to put together everything that's required and put their submission in. June 2nd is the deadline for 2025. Rachel, our grant manager, has also scheduled a webinar about these grants, and that webinar will be the 8th of April. And the link is on the slide here, but I can put it in the chat when I'm done speaking so that folks can register for that webinar. That's the opportunity to learn about all the details, much more than what I've shared here today. But like the grant program that Janice just spoke about, that's the opportunity to ask questions of our team about the application or any questions that communities might have about this year's grant cycle. And let's see, but generally, I just want you to know that our staff, after the deadline of June 2nd, the staff together reviews all of these submissions and evaluates the applications over the summer, and we expect and hope the awards would come out in the fall. So for any additional information, you can contact Rachel Smith from our Municipal Waste Reduction branch, and also visit this website. I'm happy to take any basic questions you may have on this. Thank you.
Thank you for that information, Kathy. I do see in the chat we have a question from Jan. She says, thanks for including new drop-off equipment. Is the cardboard compactor the same as the mixed paper compactor or exclusively OCC?
At this time, it's exclusively cardboard is what we're looking at, Jan. I will confer with Rachel if there's going to be any opportunity to do something different, but we're really trying to get at cardboard. We haven't offered the cardboard compactor, since pre-COVID. And obviously with COVID, we saw a big spike in materials, and particularly with so many home deliveries and online shopping and Amazon boxes and all that other stuff, we see a clear need to expand opportunities for residents to be able to recycle cardboard explicitly. And so that's why we were focusing on the opportunity to do this in a cost-effective way.
Sure, and just to add that for some Western Mass communities, we're still dual stream, so we collect cardboard with our mixed paper. So it feels a little exclusive to communities that are dual stream that might want to compact their paper. So I'll just put in a plug for expanding it.
Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. Looks like Phil has his hand up. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Phil.
Hello. Kathy, just wonder if you could elaborate a little bit more on the grants to Winchester and Lowell Methuen. What is the AD size? Is it literally just a small scale for how many tons a year in Winchester? Is it meant to be a regional, facility for commercial? And the same to Lowell Methuen.
At this stage of it, which is very early because it's been awarded, and we're working on with them to actually develop the scope of work and some of the details associated with them, Phil. So more to come in the next month or so as those get more flesh on the bones. But in Winchester's case, it is small scale. It will be for the municipality, and depending on the capacity there, my understanding is there may be an opportunity to accept some in additional to what comes in just generated from that municipality, but it is a relatively small scale option. Excuse me, in terms of Lawrence and Methuen, Lawrence and Methuen's household hazardous waste permanent facility, the idea was to serve those two communities, and then potentially over time, as they get their legs and see how it goes. I mean, a lot has to happen between now and then, because as we know, these are not easy to cite, but we also know that capturing household hazardous waste using a permanent facility provides much more access for residents and the opportunity to capture a lot more material than one or two events per year. And so that's why we are trying to encourage communities and or regional groups to have permanent collection that they can control and provide greater access. So a lot more to be learned on that, Phil, in terms of its the opportunity to go beyond those two communities, because it's still very much at the front end discussion.
Great, thank you. Yeah, definitely love to hear updates on both those projects. I think there's a lot of interest on both those topics for communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. We have an additional question from Marissa. Is it possible to apply for a cardboard compactor for a school, or is it only for a municipal drop-off center?
I will confer with Rachel, but I'm confident. I'm quite confident that at a school that is possible as well.
Got it. Okay. Any additional questions from folks here? Feel free to raise your hand, and jump right to the front of the line, or pop it in the chat. Gotta get ahead of myself there. All right. Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate it. And I'm sure that Kathy and Rachel would both be receptive to any offline questions that you might have. Next up, we're going to hear about the Recycling and Reuse Business Development Grant, which, this is on the commercial side now, just went through an extensive process here. Soeb from our team, working very hard on that, and Claudine as well. Claudine Elian, our branch chief for commercial waste reduction, will present on the RBDG program today. So take it away, Claudine.
Thank you, Sean. So hello, everyone. Again, I'm Claudine Elian, Commercial Waste Reduction Branch Chief, and I'll be presenting briefly on the Recycling and Reuse Business Development Grant on behalf of my colleague, Soeb Sikter, who created these slides and who manages the day-to-day aspects of this grant. So since the Recycling and Reuse Business Development Grant Program began in 2016, MassDEP has completed its 8th round solicitation for projects under this RBDG program and has awarded 74 grants totaling more than $8.5 million. Next slide, please. So contracts have now been finalized, and the latest round has included a distribution of $1.87 million in grants to 21 businesses and nonprofits across the state. These grants will enable Massachusetts recycling companies to expand and grow their operations and increase the amount and quality of recycling in the Commonwealth. So these include awards for a variety of material categories, including food, mattresses, textiles, glass, C&D, plastic, reuse, commingled recyclables, and furniture. Next slide, please. And here's just an outline of the timeline of this last grant round for planning purposes moving forward. As the application was launched at the end of April and scopes of work were signed at the end of the year, we are planning to launch this next RBDG round this summer. So please stay tuned for that. Next slide, please. And here's just another look at the 2024 RBDG numbers, which included 66 total applications for nearly $10.5 million requested. And again, we awarded over 1.8 million total to 21 applicants. Next slide, please. So key information for both the collection and processing of target materials can be found online at mass.gov, with award amounts for the collection grant ranging from $25,000 to $100,000 and from $50,000 to $400,000 for processing. There's also a required minimum match by the applicant of 25% for the collection grant and 50% for the processing grant. Eligible materials, again, for processing include glass, bulk, reusable materials, C&D, textiles, food, and mattresses. And for the collection grant, eligible materials include food, mattresses, and textiles. So I kept this pretty short and sweet today. That's all I have for now in terms of the RBDG grant. Back to you, Sean.
Thank you, Claudine, for that information. As you can see, that particular program has grown. And I think we're pretty proud of the work being done there. So thank you to Soeb Sikter for your stewardship of that particular program. Any questions for Claudine on this particular presentation? Take just a second here, and then we will go over to Joanne Lai, who will be, will be presenting on the Waste Reduction Innovation Grant, which is a new program that we're working on right now. Okay, thanks, Claudine. All right, Joanne.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joanne Lai. I'm an environmental analyst with MassDEP under the Commercial Waste Reduction Branch. And I'll be introducing the Innovation Grant to you all. Could go to the next slide. So to provide some background, MassDEP has been thinking about this new grant program for a while. It was actually first proposed in our 2030 Solid Waste Master Plan, and we wanted to have a recycling market development action plan in place before launching this grant. So this Waste Reduction Innovation Grant aims to expand and open new supply chains that extend the use of materials. We're hoping this will help increase reuse and recycling capacity for new and difficult to manage waste materials. And we're hoping that it'll increase the quality and performance and value of recovered materials. So these are some of the broad goals of this new grant program. If you go to the next slide. This grant program is similar to RBDG grants in the way that projects are awarded. So applicants that receive an award letter, they would have to sign a contract, meet the timeline that they propose. And we're anticipating awarding up to $6 million in total. It's really based on what type of applications we receive. So I'll be going in more detail of the grant, but I do want to emphasize that it is a completely new grant program, and we're hoping that you'll help spread the word about this opportunity so that it can reach more people. If you go to the next slide. Just going over the eligible entities. So any for-profit, nonprofit companies, corporations that are registered to do business in the Commonwealth at the time of contracting, they are eligible as long as they meet the grant eligibility criteria. We have a grant guideline that we will post and make available online. But some of the eligibility criteria are listed right here on the slide. So if the grant is funding any equipment, they must be used exclusively in Massachusetts, and they must remain in the state and used for its funded purpose. Another criteria is that there must be compliance with federal and state environmental laws for the past 3 years. And then, of course, we have a required timeline. So projects must be completed within that timeline. If you go to the next slide. So the innovation grant is split into 2 tracks or categories, is what we're calling it. So category 1, we have the startup and pilot projects category. They are smaller grant funding. We're hoping that it'll fund the commercialization of projects that have demonstrated success outside of bench scale lab environments. And then our second category, category 2, is our innovative capital investment. So this we're hoping to support capital infrastructure, really focusing in on technology or equipment that is not prevalent in Massachusetts. Applicants may apply for only one category, and so they would hopefully read through the grant guidelines and see which is most applicable to them. Next slide. On this slide, I've provided some key information about the pilot project category. So an applicant could be awarded between $50,000 to $100,000 with a financial match of 25% of the applicant's requested amount. So what's exciting about this category is that the material eligibility is any material as long as it's diverted from solid waste disposal. And as long as it falls under one of the required activities, which is either processing, manufacturing, reusing of proposed material type, or it's an application of a technology that supports these activities. You'll also see here that the grant funded cost in this category covers not only equipment and other capital costs, but it also covers staff and consultant time, feasibility study, and marketing cost. We included these items because we really want the startup or pilot project that applied for this grant to be able to commercialize and expand their operations, which means needing support in areas that isn't just the purchase of equipment pieces. And again, the project must be able to be completed within a timeline, and we're looking at an 18-month time frame. Next slide. So here we have category 2, and it looks a lot different. So the award amount is larger. It ranges from $500,000 to $2 million with a minimum 50% match by the applicant. So both the award amount and the minimum match is larger in this category. We also have a targeted list of eligible materials. Applicants must address one of these materials. We have textiles, container glass, C&D materials, bulky items, and household lithium batteries. And then the eligible activities are somewhat similar to category 1. So we're looking for processing, manufacturing, or reuse of the eligible materials. And then again, the time frame, there is a required time frame. However, it's 36 months. And then the eligible grant funded costs, we're specifically looking at equipment or other capital cost. If you go to the next slide. So this is my last slide here. We anticipate that the application will open in late spring of this year, and we will announce the news through different MassDEP work group contact list. My suggestion for those that are interested in applying is to take some time to read through the grant guideline in its entirety. We will have the grant guideline posted on our website, and once it's posted, we'll make sure to send out an announcement about that. If you do have any questions, either from now or from the time that the application opens, you're more than welcome to send those questions to me. However, if you send questions in after the application opens, it does go through a much more formal process where we will post the questions and answers online. So if you do have any immediate questions, feel free to send them along to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. And I'll just, I see a hand raised for Janet here, so I'll turn it over to Janet for her question.
Thanks. I have two questions. I think it was the slide before this one, the list of the materials. Exactly. Thank you so much. So one is very specific on container glass. Is that container glass that comes through the deposit law system or other? Because obviously we want all container glass to go through the bottle bill. So that's number one. And number two, on textiles, do we, and when I say we, I mean you, have a handle on like what is currently happening with textiles that are collected through the ban? Like what industries are there in Massachusetts, or are there, is there some inventory? I get asked that a lot, like what is happening with these textiles that are collected? And I'm excited to hear that there's going to be support for new ways to deal with them, but I was wanting to know if you had a handle on what currently happens to them. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Janet. I will try to answer the questions to the best ability that I can. And if I'm missing something, I'll hopefully another MassDEP staff can also chime in. But for container glass, I do want to emphasize that it's container glass that are diverted from solid waste disposal. So if you're wondering if it's container glass from deposits, those are already being captured, is my assumption. And so we're really looking for container glass that would somehow end up in the solid waste disposal or isn't fully captured. Hopefully that answers your question.
I guess that was my sort of subtle way of going, let's all get all that container glass into the bottle bill so there'd be none here. But that's my, rant for the day. But so answer number two. Thank you, Joanne.
Yeah, that would be amazing if there was a technology to grab all of them and then just, send them to the bottle bill. I don't know. But yeah, that's a good idea. John, I see your hands up.
Yeah, you answered that. I think you answered that glass question, but what the intent was, and the other reason we said container glass is container glass as opposed to things like glass windows and things like that, which are require a different kind of management. And then the textiles, we do have information about textile recovery organizations that are operating in Massachusetts. It's each one has sort of a different mix of the way they manage the textiles that they get, different ways they distribute and reuse those. So it kind of varies organization by organization. But what this grant is focused on is better downstream recycling options for some of these materials that complement, the textiles that are being resold and reused. So it's about trying to strengthen the textile recycling markets within Massachusetts for textiles that can't effectively be reused.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that perspective. Thanks, Joanne. We do have a question in the chat, and I think I can kind of take a stab at that. What is meant by equipment that is not prevalent in Massachusetts? And I think what we're talking about here is an innovation grant, right? If you did already have some established technology that was being used, and you wanted it for your own business, you'd probably, go through the RBDG, Recycling Business Development Grant. We're talking about something that is, not being used currently to manage those materials in Massachusetts, hence innovation. Any other questions for Joanne? Was there a list of materials specified for category 1? Do we
The
have that on a
answer
slide?
is no, there is no materials listed for category 1, which is what makes it so exciting, is that we're trying to, really learn more about the innovation space for startups and, any pilot projects, which is why we kept it more flexible in terms of eligible materials. And really, we're hoping that, these startups or pilot projects, they are able to, commercialize outside of the bench scale, and then therefore have more operations in Massachusetts collecting different materials that we haven't really thought of.
Yeah, we're really looking to drive tonnage through these grants. Obviously, we have solid waste goals. That Darby asked about category slide 1. So there's that. Some of you folks here on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee call may have participated in the recycling market development work group that we had over a couple of year period. So this is kind of one of the logical next steps, as Joanne explained, for that action plan. So we're definitely excited about this and excited to see what kind of proposals cross our desk. Like we said, we're really looking to drive some tonnage here to be able to achieve our goals. All right. I don't think I have any other questions at this time. I feel like, if we were at the movie theater, we'd take a short intermission right now, but we're just going to keep going. John Fisher is going to present today. First, John's got a couple of things. First, on the EPR Commission, which you might have heard about, that's coming up here, and also on our solid waste master plan assessment. And we've hit the midway point for our 2030 master plan goals. So John's going to give an overview of that. Of course, as always, folks are encouraged to ask questions. I'm sure John would be happy to answer any that you might have. John.
Great. Thanks, Sean. You can go to the next one there. Okay. So first, maybe just a kind of pause and a transitional thought as we move through the agenda here. I've been at DEP since 1998. I was at the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs a couple years before that. And there's been a lot that's happened through all those years. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this might be the busiest year of the solid waste program since I've been at MassDEP. I haven't thought through year by year, but I think I'd be hard pressed to find a busier year for the solid waste program at MassDEP than what we have right now, given the breadth and depth of work that's going on. So it's daunting, but it's also really exciting to have all this activity going on in a lot of different areas. So what I'll talk about today with this EPR Commission is really a pretty preliminary update. There'll be much more information coming out about the EPR Commission over the coming months and short term in the coming weeks. But there was recent legislation, Chapter 239 of the Acts of 2024, that directed MassDEP to chair an extended producer responsibility commission. And that legislation established 21 defined members not so much specific members, but a sort of membership categories and a process for identifying and nominating those members. We're in a process right now of working to establish those member representatives for the commission. What we expect to do with this commission, I'll talk more about the specific meetings in a moment, but we're looking to hold hybrid meetings that would be, of course, would include the commission members, but would also be open to the public. We're looking to provide a process for comments and input outside of meetings. So there'd be kind of a online input opportunity before and after meetings. And of course, we'll be establishing a commission web page that will serve as a hub for all of the information about the PR commission. Next slide, please, Sean. So what the legislation charges us with doing is addressing 5 categories of products or packaging, and these include paint, mattresses, lithium-ion batteries, electronics, and then plastics and other packaging. So our plan for this is to hold one kickoff meeting, which is being scheduled for March. We'll be announcing that officially soon. And then kind of on a monthly basis, roughly monthly basis, holding meetings, one meeting each for each of these 5 product categories. We do not have meeting dates yet set, so the monthly frequency is still to be determined, but a frequency roughly along those lines. We're charged with submitting a report to the legislature by January of 2026. So we need to get all these meetings done with allowing us time to complete the report that comes from those meetings. And then we also do plan to share interim reports along the way, particularly for materials like paint and mattresses, where there are well-established EPR programs and systems in place already. And we'd hate to have people waiting on the full commission report before we report back on materials like those. So our thinking is to do those first, issue interim reports on those materials, and then move on to the other materials that we are charged with discussing. So that's kind of what we're thinking about process-wise. Next slide, please. And this is the scope of what we're being asked to identify in the report that we prepare. So the report will include recommendations on specific EPR approaches. Those would be specific to each of those 5 product or packaging categories. Developing a proposed structure for each, including collection, processing, and financial responsibility provisions, providing an analysis of the cost impacts, benefits, but also how costs would be paid for each material, methods for incentivizing changes in product and packaging production, including material reduction, reuse, and extending product and packaging life cycles, and then impacts on waste generation and potentially reducing contamination of waste or recycling streams. So that's a quick overview of what we're looking at for the CPR Commission. Again, we expect to be kicking things off in March. We'll have a meeting announcement going out, I expect within the next couple of weeks. Like I said, we'll be setting up a website. We'll be sharing information out through all of our stakeholder groups about the commission, about the meetings, we'll be preparing materials for each meeting. All of that information will be shared up through the website. One other thought that just slipped my mind. I'll circle back to that. So that's what we're looking at this point. This is kind of an interim update. Again, there'll be more information going out shortly. And happy to take any questions that folks may have. Depending on your question, I may or may not be able to provide a specific answer just yet, but happy to take a crack at that.
Yeah, John, Juanita, jumped up in the chat here and said, can you share who will be the DEP chair for the EPR Commission?
Yeah, the DEP chair is our Commissioner, Bonnie Heupel, although there'll certainly be others involved from MassDEP in supporting and participating in the commission meetings.
Any other questions or comments for John at this point? Okay.
Okay, well, we can certainly circle back to that too.
Sure.
So now we're going to shift gears and talk about the solid waste master plan. Yeah, you can go ahead to the next one, Sean. If you're not familiar with the solid waste master plan, well, first of all, you could be. It's a really important document for us, and it's a really important document that guides MassDEP's work on solid waste and waste reduction. So if you're not already familiar with the solid waste master plan, take a look. But essentially what that plan does is it provides our overarching program and policy framework for how we're trying to manage solid waste in Massachusetts. Typically, we develop and update the solid waste master plan on 10-year cycles. Our current 2030 solid waste master plan was finalized in 2021, and that's intended to run through 2030. And again, this is a big picture kind of umbrella policy framework that we work within, and it provides our general directions and priorities that we're looking to focus on through this 10-year period. And then this plan has been and will continue to be supported by multiple action plans. And our intent is that those action plans get updated periodically as we need to along the way through stakeholder work groups and subcommittees that I'll talk about more in a minute. Next slide, please. So in the solid waste master plan, one of the many things we said that we would do was that we would prepare a mid-course program and policy assessment by 2025. And here we are. It's 2025 already. 5 years or 4 years goes really quickly when you're busy running these programs. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that program review today, how we're going to be approaching that program review, how we're looking for you and other stakeholders to engage and participate. And I'll give kind of a little bit of a snapshot of progress to date from my perspective to kind of set the stage for some of our upcoming discussions. So in general, we're going to be working through our Solid Waste Advisory Committee as the key group for doing this, and we'll be setting up additional meetings beyond our regularly scheduled meetings as we need to. Typically, those regularly scheduled meetings take place in January, April, June, and I think October. Sean, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But in any case, we will, change or add meetings as we need to. Sorry, can you just bounce back a slide? We'll be looking to report on our progress implementing the programs and policies that we identified in the solid waste master plan. Are we doing what we said we would do, or if we're not, what's the explanation there, and what do we need to do to move forward? We'll be updating all of our action plans, including construction and demolition materials, organics, which is largely focused on food material, recycling, market development, and reduce and reuse. So we'll be, reviewing those action plans, look at adjustments needed to those action plans. One of the things we're thinking about a lot is the optimal uses of our staffing and funding. So you just heard about several MassDEP grant programs. We also have a whole bunch of other programs that we're running in addition to those grant programs, and we're going to be looking across all of our programs and thinking and making recommendations and proposals for maybe should we be shifting priorities? Should we putting more resources, more staff towards one program area or another? That's something that we're going to be giving a lot of thought to, and we're going to be engaging in some external discussions about some of that thinking and decision making as well. And like the EPR Commission, we'll be striving to complete that review and our report on that review by the end of calendar year 2025. Next slide, please. So there are, in addition to that broad review that I talked about, there are a couple of specific things in the solid waste master plan that we identified that we would look at in the course of this review. So one is to conduct a stakeholder process to assess whether to ban all organic waste from disposal by 2030, and in particular, whether to essentially establish a universal waste ban on food material. So that will be discussed through our organic subcommittee. I'll be announcing our next meeting coming up in March. I expect that's going to be one of several meetings on that topic. There's a lot to think about in making a decision like that, and we want to make sure we are taking into account everyone's perspectives, everyone's interests, priorities, and concerns. This is a complex set of issues around this, and we want to make sure we're really getting everything out on the table before we make any recommendation about proceeding on that. So that'll be taking place in the context of our organic subcommittee, and we'll be sharing out more information about the first meeting where we'll be doing that. But again, I think it'll be the first of several, because we'll have a lot of topics and issues to be discussing in that context. Next slide, please. Another issue that we said we would look at specifically in the course of this program review is what we can do to improve the performance of existing combustion capacity. And here what we're talking about is municipal solid waste combustion capacity. So one of the things we said we'd do is we would explore the potential to establish a declining cap on carbon dioxide emissions from municipal waste combustors, potentially looking at what we could do to reduce other emissions as well. Our thinking is that could be similar to approaches that we take with other electrical generation facilities, and we'd be looking to align whatever we do there with the objectives of the Global Warming Solutions Act and the 2030 Clean Energy and Climate Plan. This, of course, is not just a solid waste issue. This is an air quality issue and a climate change issue, and we'll be working in conjunction with our key staff and managers from those programs to kind of lay out potential options here that we think might be viable and engage in discussion around those. And I expect we'll be having a meeting focused specifically on this topic and what we see as the options and what we might be able to do in this regard. So this is something along with the potential universal food waste disposal ban that we specifically identified for discussion in this context. Next slide, please. But as everyone knows, there's much, much more. One thing that we did not specifically call out in this context, but we will be talking about is updating our plan for managing hazardous household products. This has been discussed at a recent SWAC meeting. We'll be forming a small subcommittee or work group to discuss that further. That, like all of our subcommittees and work groups, be open to anyone who's interested. And that discussion will be going on concurrent with the master plan review. So even though we don't have a action plan right now for hazardous household products, we'll be developing that as we go. Phil, I see your hand up, but I'm just going to just got a few more slides here, so I'm just going to try to get through those, and then we'll jump to you. Next slide, please. Okay, so progress to date overall. So if you recall, or if you don't know, our 2030 solid waste master plan set a goal to reduce our disposal by 30%, which is a 1.7 million ton reduction by 2030, which would be dropping from 5.7 million tons, our 2018 baseline, down to 4 million tons by 2030. However, unfortunately, total disposals actually increased since then, about 9%, or 500,000 tons. That's through 2023. We do not yet have 2024 data prepared. We do realize and acknowledge that This was driven in large part by economic growth. There's a general tendency in the world of solid waste that waste generation rises in line with the economy. And we've seen state gross domestic product grow by 32% during this period. So, we believe that that's certainly a factor in increasing the total disposal. And then we also know, though I don't have a lot of specific causal and kind of conclusive data around this, that we do know there's a lot of post-pandemic waste generation shift that affected the way waste is being generated, collected, and managed. That played into this as well. But we are still looking towards that same disposal reduction goal and looking to reduce our disposal as much as possible. So this will certainly be a topic that will run throughout this master plan review, is what can we do to reverse this trend and drop our overall disposal. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to be going through just a few slides about a couple different areas. Some of this has been touched on through some of the presentations already, so I won't go too deep into this. But in the area of reduce and reuse, we developed a reduce and reuse action plan in 2021. That was one of the first things that happened in the wake of the 2030 master plan, and that was actually well underway as we were working on the master plan. We've had a very active deconstruction work group. We've held 7 online meetings of that work group over the past couple of years, and had really great participation and engagement around how we can advance deconstruction in Massachusetts. And we're looking to plan a more extensive workshop this fall that would really dive into that much deeper and really come up with specific action plans for what we can do to advance deconstruction more effectively. You heard about our reused microgrants. We're looking to continue to grow those. We're excited recently through our Recycling Works in Massachusetts program, working closely with state and local public health officials. We published best management practices around how food service establishments could shift to reusable takeout containers and do that in a way that is consistent and compliant with the state food code. And then, as has been mentioned a couple times already, we're looking to increase our focus on bulky items in the waste stream. Sometimes these show up in municipal solid waste. Sometimes they show up in our construction and demolition materials stream. But we're really looking to advance our infrastructure for managing some of these bulky items across several of our program areas. Next slide, please. Okay, construction and demolition debris. Like our overall solid waste, we have a disposal reduction goal for construction and demolition debris. And like our overall solid waste, our C&D disposal has grown during this period. So our initial goal was a 260,000 ton reduction. We would now require a 500,000 ton reduction to achieve that goal. So like we're doing across the board, we're looking across everything that we're doing to attempt to reduce disposal of construction and demolition materials and see what we can do that can be more effective in this area and further reduce disposal. A big part of what we've done, and we're looking to grow and advance our work in this area, is a minimum performance standard for C&D handling facilities, like transfer stations and processing facilities, that ensures a level playing field and assures that all this material is going through a facility that has robust processing infrastructure. That threshold for that minimum performance standard is now set at 15%, and we've already articulated a proposal that would gradually increase that to 25% by 2030. But we also believe that we need to do more than that, and that we need to look at other strategies that can be complementary and supportive to that, including more advanced source separation of certain construction materials and growing deconstruction practices, as I alluded to a moment ago. Next slide, please. Okay, recycling market development. We talked about several aspects of our recycling market development work already. Like some of these other areas, we developed a recycling market development action plan in the wake of the solid waste master plan. This is actually the most recent action plan we implemented. we're looking to continue to grow our grant programs for recycling and reuse business development grants. We had already expanded those to include reuse projects and also expanded those from just processing grants to also include collection grants for our new waistband materials. We're always continuing to assess what's the best focus and best use of those grant dollars. In the context of our action plan, we've also developed and posted guidance for recycling businesses in Massachusetts. We'll look to continue to update that as we go, sharing information about all of the organizations in Massachusetts that can support recycling, composting, and reuse organizations. As you heard about, we'll be launching our Waste Reduction Innovations Grant this spring. This is one of the most significant program elements of the Solid Waste Master Plan that we've not yet implemented. So this one's really exciting. And as Joanne talked about, we're really excited to be launching that program. We're also looking into developing a waste reduction business accelerator program that can really help businesses with their market development and business planning, with the goal of helping them both develop better quality grant applications for us, but also put them in a better position where they can obtain financing and funding from other sources. So we're looking at potentially launching that program in 2026, looking at some of the business accelerator programs around the country and for other materials in Massachusetts, and looking to develop a program that we think would fit for us. And then, as always, we're continuing to look to rebuild or extend our recycling market development network with connected organizations in Massachusetts and the region. And next slide, please. I think 2 or 3 more here. So food waste has been a priority for us for quite a while. We've made some really good progress with reducing food waste disposal. Our annual separation and diversion of food material from the trash has increased from about 100,000 tons back in 2012, prior to our initial food waste disposal ban. And as of 2023, that number's up to 380,000 tons. We've seen a number of businesses that are separating food material from the trash. It's more than doubled, from about 1,300 to just over 3,100. As I think most people know, we had an initial waste ban that went into effect at 1 ton per week in 2014. We've lowered that threshold to a 0.5 ton per week, effective in 2022. We're continuing to work on more fully implementing that 0.5 ton per week threshold, and then continuing to invest in our infrastructure across all of our different grant programs. And then, as we've been focused on commercial food waste reduction, we're gradually shifting our emphasis to residential food waste reduction. That's not a black and white shift. We've been focused and working on residential food waste reduction along the way, but in the spirit of resource allocation, we'll be, looking to gradually shift our resources more to residential food waste reduction as we go, and shift those away from our focus on commercial food waste reduction. As we look at kind of the greatest remaining amount of food material in the waste stream, as we've made progress on the commercial sector, we know there's a lot of food waste from residents that's left to capture. Next slide, please. So our new wastebands, early 2024, we hired 2 new wasteban inspectors. We've significantly increased the inspections that we've been doing and are now seeing a ramp up in the enforcement actions that's coming out of those inspections. Along with our food waste ban expansion in 2022, we also implemented new wastebands on mattresses and textiles at that same time. Our year 1 results, and we'll be updating this over the next couple months. The recycling and reuse of mattresses more than doubled. We're really excited about that progress, and hopeful that we'll continue to make more incremental gains. I don't think it's possible to double that again, because I don't think we have that many mattresses to recycle, but looking to continue to grow our mattress recovery. Textiles, we saw a more modest gain, a 7% increase in textile recovery from 22 to 23. That was about a 3,000 ton increase. I'll note that that's only certain textile recovery organizations that we get reports from, and there's all sorts of textile recovery that happens informally that we don't get data on. Garage sales, tag sales, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, all those sorts of things, consignment stores. There's a huge informal structure for textile reuse and resale that we really don't have data on. Another note just on food waste, we have been sending and will continue to send formal request for information letters to businesses that we think may be subject to the ban to document and verify their compliance. We've sent letters to more than 50 businesses so far. All those businesses represent more than 700 locations, and we're looking to continue to incrementally grow that. The reason we're doing this on an incremental and batch basis is these letters take quite a bit of time. These do require responses. If we don't get a response, we issue enforcement to the business that we send it to, and we also, take quite a bit of time in reviewing the responses and have some back and forth communication with the businesses that we respond. So this is fairly time intensive to do this. Next slide, please. Okay, yeah, that's it. So that's kind of a very high level snapshot of some of the work that we've been doing, some of the progress we've seen, some of the challenges we've seen, and some of it just to lay the groundwork for some of the things we'll be talking about and that I'm thinking about as we move forward with this master plan review. So let me turn to you first, Phil.
Yeah, let's start with Phil. He raised his hand and has been patiently waiting.
Thanks, John, for the great update as usual. Couple of things. I support the comments in the chat about the EPR Commission. Of course, that's wonderful news, and appreciate the commissioner being the leader on that. The unanswered question, well, I will just say in the master plan update, you had mentioned briefly that a summary of the EPR Commission might be in the master plan update. If I got that correct, is that the plan?
Oh, no, sorry, that was not what I meant.
Okay.
The EPR Commission and the Master Plan Review will be two separate, distinct processes. And the EPR Commission, I should clarify, is not our commission. That's a legislative commission that we're directed to chair. So that's got its own specific requirements and process. I think what my comment was there was just that they both coincidentally are on very similar timeframes.
Yeah, you're correct. Thank you for that clarification. However, my point about that is that the plan has specifically mentioned EPR as a tool previously. Okay, so I think if it's not in this update, but for the next iteration of the master plan or a subsequent interim update, I think the findings of the commission and how the state, not just DEP, maybe the secretariat level, as a policy decision from the governor down, will manifest recommendations or take forward initiatives on a more overt and aggressive stance, where we have states around the country doing different initiatives. Right now, as you know, a lot of the initiatives are coming from Mass PSC, Mass Recycle, and municipal volunteers. And we're really swimming upstream for many, many years, for example, working on paint for like 15 years. So other states have massive resources and organizations in this, so it would be really nice to see if there's positive findings the commissioner, as the chair, has that gets incorporated and manifests in some sort of support, if not overtly for a piece of legislation, but EPR framework structures, how you're going to support PROs, something more concrete. So I think you get the point. We have an opportunity here to move the ball forward in big ways. And it would be great to see that more incorporated directly in the master plan.
So, sorry, just to clarify that, Phil. So I think I understand better what you're saying. So as there's kind of outputs or recommendations from the commission, that those get integrated into the master plan review as appropriate. So if they
great.
make progress connected.
And there are, again, I would just encourage the state to just look nationally on initiatives that are happening, and is there a way to move the ball forward with the legislature? This is good that it's coming from the legislature. I stand corrected on that. I think that's a positive sign, because it's been kind of buried down the list on environmental topics for a long time. On HHP, we did, several of us, Juanita, Claire, myself, and Calliope, who recently retired from Barnstable County, presented an update. Juanita presented that in June on WHHP. I will note that one outcome of that was that we put in a request to the secretary, copied the state DEP on this for a request for $250,000 for a statewide master plan for HHP infrastructure, facilities, design, permitting locations through the environmental bond bill that comes out by the governor, which those of you who don't know about that is once probably every 5 years. So we put in a request to fund a contractor to do a study to support what you're talking about, in addition to the efforts that you mentioned with the work group and so forth. But we need to really dig into what it's going to take to do permanent infrastructure around the state. You've got the Lawrence Methuen one, but even on those levels down the South Shore, Claire, I mean, it's a very big lift politically, economically, operationally to do these things. Other states, again, have gone forward. Colorado being one of Boulder County's really excellent example. So heads up for folks when that bill comes out. If that's in there, let's hope it's in there, that you support the governor if she does that. Also in that is a request for a $1.5 million needs assessment that Claire's been working on with you for the EBB as well. On your data, John, I would suggest the update that you talk about. You're going to have the updated capacity and export numbers, I presume, at that time.
Yeah, you mean the 2024 solid waste data?
Yeah, the data is, structure, emissions also go with the waste. So there's emissions reductions in the state, but we need to be cognizant that there are emissions associated with transportation and the facilities you go to. So understanding the export market, how that's changing a lot of rail facilities, will there be some sort of update on that?
Yeah, we do that on an annual basis. I can't tell you exactly when that'll be published, but we're continuing to do that update on an annual basis.
Last two comments, being brief here. I would encourage the state to include the master plan, a section specifically on other state agencies, leadership by example possibilities. And two examples would be Mass DOT. We've struggled for many years to have DOT formally incorporate, say, aggregate or asphalt shingles or buy compost. During around the country, they're doing these things. And I would encourage the agencies to work together through the secretariat. And that also includes clean gypsum diversion from state building projects that could be incorporated into state contracts with DCAM. I think that would be helpful to the C&D processors to have more diverted. And it really is just an addendum or codicil to state contracts. There's no reason why the state, if they're building a new office building or renovating the clean sheet gypsum, I know it's already required, but make it specific. And the last one is, do you have any updates? I think the reg packages 16, 19 are in the works. Maybe you have any update on timeline for that? They've been, obviously, it's been a while.
Yeah, those are still going through internal review at MassDEP. Obviously, like I mentioned when I started to speak, and as you're seeing here, there's a lot going on. Some of this is going through some of the same people. It's at some point we're probably going to run into some bandwidth issues with getting this all done. But the solid waste regulations are out of the solid waste program, and they're going through our internal review process internally.
Okay, thank you. The only comment on that is it's obviously is a lot going on with less, fewer staff, but it's important because there's some siting issues in there, and the more that you're encouraging businesses to do things in site facilities, this is all connected, right? So the developers needs the support and clarity from the department on how to do things, as well as local boards of health, the site assignments and things like that. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the comment.
Yeah, thank you, Phil, for all the thoughtful comments you provided. I do see a few things in the chat here, so I'll try to get to those. Claire had a comment on HHW. She says, will the subcommittee be a formal work group?
I think so. I still don't know exactly what the name's going to be. We have subcommittees, we have work groups, we have friendly named groups of people. But yes, I think whatever we end up calling it. I think it'll be something that'll be a sustained group, at least for this period while we're working through all these planning and capacity issues.
Thanks, John. Also a question from John for you, John. What does beginning to shift emphasis to residential food waste reduction look like? Any specific plans?
Yeah, so I think that's one of the things we want to be talking about in the organic subcommittee discussion, and it's one of the things that's important in thinking about whether a universal food waste ban is appropriate. So what we've been doing so far is it's of course all been on a voluntary basis. We've been working with cities and towns. We've been delivering technical assistance. We've delivered grants to certain communities for equipment to support food waste collection. Kathy mentioned in her talk on the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program, we are providing a subcategory on the grant application for grants to support collecting food waste at a municipal drop-off location. So I think, one thing that this likely will include is doing more of that. So putting more resources into grants and assistance that would develop more broader, more widely available food waste collection opportunities for residents. So growing those programs is certainly going to be an element of it. You heard briefly about the Winchester grant for a local small-scale anaerobic digestion operation. I think that's one small example of what that might look like. We're interested in trying different approaches, seeing what works. Cost effectiveness is always very important with programs like this. How can a program be implemented as cost effectively as possible? So we're going to be, working with municipalities a lot to do that as we go. Some of our business-focused grants may be more focused and directed, or maybe also focused and directed on businesses that are sourcing food waste from residential programs. We haven't made any particular decision or recommendation there, but that's something we could think about doing, so that we are growing that infrastructure. And the other component could be further growing the collection infrastructure for small sources of food material, whether that be residents or small businesses. And then the other thing that I think we have to talk about is how can we just prevent food waste better? I know individually what I can do to prevent food waste better, but there are 7 million of us wasting food. And how can we all be more efficient and effective and save money by reducing the amount of food waste that we're generating to begin with? So through changes like shopping habits and meal preparation and food storage and paying attention to what date labels do and don't mean on food, things like this, where we can reduce and prevent food waste to begin with, could be probably our most cost-effective measure for managing a lot of this material. So we need to think about what can we do to better influence that and have a better effect on that. And then the other one that we've looked to support already, and we'd like to support more and better, is continuing to grow our infrastructure for food donation and food rescue. So I think all those things play into it. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of issues. As you can probably gather from what I just said, I think it's fair to say we have more questions than answers at this point about how that's going to go.
Thanks, John. A couple other things. For one, we've had several helpful links posted in the meeting chat. Marissa just pasted one in there on Food Waste Prevention Week. And I'm also seeing a question from Claire about DEP and tonnage that we receive data about tonnage that we receive from textile collectors?
We do, and that those reports and data are what are the data behind what the point I shared about the 7% or 3,000 ton increase. So we'll be doing that again with both mattresses and textiles. We've been doing that with food waste for a long time. So we'll continue to get that material specific information on a year by year basis as we go.
Great. Any other specific questions on John's presentation or any of the earlier presentations that we had on the various funding programs that our staff made presentations on? A lot of ground was just covered in the last 90 something minutes. And certainly appreciate everyone's feedback here. Yeah, if we're at a place here where we've kind of said what we need to say and you folks have made your observations and asked your questions, we can table this for now. Obviously, these niches will still be going on. We will be posting, excuse me, information, the recording to this meeting, slide deck to this meeting on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee website, which is hosted on our MassDEP website. I'll email attendees about that in the coming days when that is posted. And of course, you know, our doors are metaphorical doors are open here. If there are any questions, you know where to find us. And, you know, we look forward to working with many of you on some of these initiatives that are coming up. So thanks to everyone for their presentations, and thanks to everyone who attended and had such thoughtful commentary. John.
Yeah, just one thing real quick in closing. I think one thing we can do to share out to the SWAC list is this is all up on our website, but just share links and contacts for each of our work groups and subcommittees. So if people have questions about those, make sure we direct people to, you know, where they need to go to get more information or to get added to a contact list for any of those groups. So we'll make sure we share that out so everybody's got that.
All right, just taking a note to put those into our posting, and yeah, we'll be seeing you. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks, Sean. Hope you feel better. You sound a little congested.
You know, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm giving away my condition here, but wouldn't miss this meeting.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day and enjoy the weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks. You too.